Hello and welcome, Sparkimus here to demonstrate my new spoiler alert plugin, a little Spigot Bukkit plugin for Minecraft servers to make the food items that you collect expire after a certain amount of time. So let's get right into it. I'll first show you where we're getting this code. Getting it from my GitHub page, Sparkimus spoiler alert, and take a quick look at the POM file. You can see we're on version 1.0.0. Alright, we're going to build this into our plugin folder. Let me delete the old file there. We're going to build this into our plugin folder, and when that's done, we'll spool up the server and take a look. Building should only take a second, or 5. Okay, so now that that's done, you can see we have the jar file over there. I'll spool up the Minecraft server. We'll take a little bit of a look at the config file. You can see this setting here, spoiler alert, set expiration on inventory click, true. So what that is saying is, so when you first install this plugin, there's going to be a lot of people with items in their chests and their inventories that aren't expired yet, they're not perishable. If you want, when they click on those items for the first time, we can set an expiration date at that moment as if they had just picked up the item. If you want the remaining items to be unaffected, then you would just set this to false, and then the remaining items won't get an expiration date when they click on them. Now, if they were to drop the item and pick it back up, then it will have an expiration date just by the fact that you have this plugin installed. That's the default nature, is to expire things upon picking them up or upon crafting a recipe. Okay, so this the server's all started up. Let's log in to localhost and check out some of these features. Okay, I have a little area set up for us, and one of the first things I want to demonstrate is a command that everyone can run if you install this plugin called spoiled date. You can see it is the first day of the first month of the first year. So what this means is, like, I had to invent a time system for this stuff to work. I could have gone off of like real days, but I don't know how everybody's server's set up, if it's on UTC time or Greenwich, England, whatever. So didn't really want to bring real dates into this. So I invented a little date system. Essentially, there's 12 months. Every month has 28 days. That's 7 days per week and 4 weeks per month. So you can see we're here on the very first day of this server, and I have a chest here with some existing items, and none of them are perishable. Oh, this one I must have clicked in my last time I was playing around. So this one's already perishable. This wouldn't really happen the first time you installed it, obviously, but this is an egg stack that's not perishable. You can see the first time I click it, it's going to get an expiration date of 1/11, so in 10 days, and that's because eggs have a shelf life of 10 days. And you can see these other things don't have expiration dates, but when you click on them, because of that configuration setting we talked about, they will get an expiration date at that moment. Now, if I were to go over here to the field and pick up one of the wheat, you can see this wheat stack that I get will also have an expiration date the moment I pick it up, or these carrots as well. They're called carrot items now for technical reasons, but we won't get into that. Okay, so let's craft something and see what happens as well. So you can see here we have some raw beef. If I pick it up, it's going to have expiration date of 1/3. So that's just 2 days from now, because raw beef has a shelf life of 2 days. So let's open up the furnace and cook some, and you can see the output that we get will be cooked beef, and it will have a expiration date of, let's see, it has a shelf life of 7 days, so the 8th. Now, I do want to point out that you could eat this on the 8th and still be safe. You can eat it on its expiration date, just not after. And technically you can eat it, but it becomes less and less safe the older it gets. And that is proportional to its shelf life. So for example, eating raw beef 1 day after its expiration date, so on the 4th in this case, is more dangerous than eating cooked beef 1 day after its expiration date, because raw beef has a shorter shelf life, so eating things after they're expired become more dangerous the shorter that shelf life is. And I'll show you how some of that works later. We'll eat some stuff and get blinded and get nausea. You can start getting harm if it's old enough as well, and if you eat something that's really, really expired, it can actually kill you like that. So let's craft something like a a food item in the crafting bench, and you can see it works the same way as the furnace. So let's just take up a stack of wheat, and you can see we can make some bread. Now the wheat is expiring on 1/22. I think the bread might actually have a shorter shelf life. And maybe we didn't add it to the file here. Bread. Baked. Oh, see, we did. This is a good example. If you don't want things to expire, you can actually not include it in the config file. I will add the bread later before I push this code for you to download. But you can see we didn't have bread there, so it's not expirable. Okay, let's make something that is expirable. We have cake here. So cake should be wheat, egg, milk, sugar. So we have some milk. It's going to expire as soon as we click on it. We have some eggs, already have an expiration date, and we need some sugar. I'll have to give myself some sugar. And I do want to point out that sugar actually will not expire. That's not in the file, because in reality, if you have perfectly dry sugar, it should last forever. So I didn't have a default expiration date for sugar, but you could add one if you wanted to, of course. And we need, I think that's it. Okay, so let's craft this cake. You can see the milk buckets go on top, an egg in the middle, some sugar on the sides, and some wheat on the bottom. Okay, so now we have a cake, and it has an expiration date of 1/15. Okay, and we'll play around with this cake in a minute. You can see I already have a cake on the ground over there. That one will not have an expiration date. This one, when we place it down, it will actually remember its expiration date. We'll see that in a second. I want to demonstrate one more thing about crafting, because so far we've crafted with just food items that were not expired. Let's craft with something that is expired. So this beef won't expire for 2 days, so let's fast forward time a little bit. We have a OP only command. We can use set day, spoil set day, and we'll add 5 days. Now you can see the raw beef, when we click on it now, it will tell us expired 3 days, danger level 4. So I won't eat it, but we'll craft with it. If I eat it, it might kill me, and we'll save that for the end. So I'll cook with this, and you can see the output will also be expired. And the same would be true in the crafting area. It's a little easier to figure out what it'll be when you're cooking in the furnace, because there's only over one source. In the crafting area, it's whatever the oldest thing is that is expired. That's what the expiration date of the output will be. In this case, you can see our raw beef had an expiration date of the 3rd, so if we cook it, it's still going to have an expiration date of the 3rd. Okay, so let's get back to that cake. Particularly proud of this. Yeah, there's some data that has to be persisted on the server to remember this, because as soon as you place an item down, it stops being an item and it starts becoming a block. So there is some data that I have to memorize or store about where the cakes have been placed. I could have stored it in memory and RAM, but I wanted this stuff to last after a server restart. So there is a file in your plugin directory that keeps track of where the cakes and pumpkins and melons are. So, but let's set this cake down, and you can see if I punch a cake, it's going to tell us if it's expired or not. This cake is not expired. It expires on the 15th. So let's fast forward time again, and we'll say let's add another 5 days, I guess. And now we can check the date again, and it's the 11th. Did I do that right? Let's add another 5 days, I guess. Now it's the 16th. So this cake is expired. If we punch it, it'll tell us this cake is expired 1/15. Now it doesn't tell you the danger level, but you can check out the date obviously and see for yourself how many days expired it is. I'm not hungry right now, so I can't. Well, let's see if I right click. Oh, it actually let me eat some of it. So you can see now what's happening when you eat something that's old. I will be blinded and confused or nauseated for 30 seconds, and that's set in this configuration setting here. We have blinding enabled, we have confusion enabled. That's the confusion is the nausea, and we have 30 seconds as the default. You can play around with those obviously if you want. Now also you can see I didn't get harmed when I ate that, so but I could have been if it had been old enough, and that's controlled by this setting, harm enabled. And it won't actually harm me necessarily if it's just 1 day old. As I said, it has to be, in this case, it has to be 3 times its shelf life past the expiration date in order for it to start harming me. You can increase that or decrease that to play around with those values, and I encourage you to do so. Also, these dates that I picked are kind of arbitrary. You might not like what I picked for each of these shelf life dates, so you can play around with those as well. Okay, so another thing is the pumpkins kind of work the same way. So this pumpkin actually doesn't have an expiration date. It was already there, so you can kind of think of it as like a fresh pumpkin, one that's still growing maybe. So if I punch it, break it, and collect it, you can see now we will have an expiration date of the 23rd. And if I were to place it back down and say let's fast forward another 5 days and break it, it's still going to be the 23rd. It's not going to treat it like a new pumpkin. As you can see, we still have the 23rd there. And the same is true with melons. So if I beat up this melon and take its melons, you can see these have an expiration date of the 28th. I don't really have enough to craft with. You need a full like 9 to craft a whole new block. But if I were to craft these into a melon and place it down, they would have the expiration date of the 28th as well. And when you place the melon down and try to break it again, it will keep that expiration date, because that data of that location of that melon is stored on the server in a file. Okay, so more things to demonstrate are some custom recipes in this plugin. So let's get some water. Well, first I'll demonstrate the candy apple. So you can see we have a stick, we have an apple, which is now a perishable apple because I clicked on it, and some sugar. If we go over here and you put the apple, so the apple has the expiration date of the 28th now. If we put some sugar around it and a stick on the bottom, now we have a candy apple, and it expires a lot farther into the future. So that's a way to, extend the shelf life of some items. Now, we also have the concept of salt. And in order to make salt, you need some water. We're just going to pretend all water is salty water. And some coal and some sand. So go to our crafting table, put the water on top as if you're pouring it through the coal filter and the bottom sand filter, and now you can see we get 4 coarse salt. And of course you get your bucket back. And now if we take let's cook some more beef quickly. This is expired beef, so maybe we want some fresh beef. Do we have any? There we go. So this is more fresh beef, and we can cook some. And once that's done cooking, we'll have some cooked beef that expires on the 28th, and we can take that now and put it in the middle and surround it with salt. And now we have salted beef, which expires on the 14th of the next month. So extending the shelf life a bit. I do want to point out as well that you cannot cook a cake with the salt. Minecraft still considers it sugar, because you might have noticed it looks like the same thing as sugar, but it has a different name, coarse salt. But the material under the hood really still is sugar. And there was some things going on in some of my older plugins where you could rename an item and use it in a different recipe. Some people might have liked that in some cases, but in this case I don't want to give people a way to make a lot of stuff called salt and be able to still cook like cakes with it or other things that require sugar. So that required a little finagling as well. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. I think in the next release of this plugin I'll be implementing some sort of refrigeration system, maybe putting ice blocks around a chest or storing ice blocks in a chest. Haven't quite worked out the details of that. If you have any good ideas about that, let me know in the comments. As always, please leave a like and enjoy.